Thank you, Dr. Carnock. If you can't hear me, let me know. And secondly, if you have questions as I'm going through this, feel free to raise your hand, just speak out, whatever. I want it to be somewhat informal. It was a very kind introduction, more glowing than I deserve, and I certainly appreciate that. And part of it is that there are several of you in here, at least half dozen or more, who've taken the 1200 class that I teach. So you're already shaking your heads about some of this stuff, so if you'll put up with that. One of the things I do in my classes, that those of you who've been in them, is that I start with some trivia questions. And do it in part because my thinking is that as people are coming across campus to the class, they're not thinking about the class. They're thinking about all kinds of other things. And so it kind of, leads into some things. So given that, I'll start with a couple of things here. First of all, what day is this? Yeah, I know. What else? Groundhog Day, of course. Yeah. Where does it originate? What state? Pennsylvania. Okay. What town? Punxsutawney, yeah, P-U-N-X-S-U-T-A-W-N-E-Y, Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. Okay, this is more information you ever wanted to know, right? Sort of. You can put this on your resumes. There's an old tradition, comes from the Middle Ages, okay? And when the Pennsylvania Dutch, who were really German, settled Pennsylvania, they brought this tradition with them. Okay, Candlemas Day is February 2nd. Candlemas Day is one of the church holidays like Christmas, Christ Mass, Candle Mass. There were a series of those in the old Catholic Church. And Candlemas Day is the midpoint between, in the winter solstice. 6 weeks ago, it was December 21st. 6 weeks from now, it'll be March 21st, so the midway point. And there was an old Scottish couplet. You know what a couplet is, two lines that rhyme, right? An old Scottish couplet said, if Candlemas Day is bright and clear, there'll be two winters in the year. Okay? If Candlemas Day is bright and clear, there'll be two winters in the year. Meaning if he sees a shadow, bright and clear, there'll be 6 more weeks of winter. Of course, if you really believe that, I've got some land I want to sell you too, but that's another story. But anyhow, the people in Punxsutawney, and if you've ever been there, it's a small little town, decided, I think it was 1886, to start celebrating this. And so they really do a big deal of it now. Last night, for instance, they would have had tuxedos, top hats, all this sort of thing, a big banquet. And there's a place, and I actually went there to visit one time. I was too curious. I was up in that area. And so there's about a 4-foot cubicle kind of thing in this little mound, little hill. And during the night, someone comes and takes this little furry creature and sticks him inside this hole. And then when daybreak, they open it up. Well, the groundhog's not real happy about this. And so typically it bites one or two of them, which I think is kind of funny. And so they go on, from there. But the final point in all this is that I think it's more than coincidence that about 10 miles away from this little town of Punxsutawney is a town called DuBois, Pennsylvania, which has one of the largest Budweiser breweries in the eastern United States. And I think these folks probably yesterday would go over there, spend the day at DuBois, and then come back for all the celebrations. So anyhow, if you're ever up in that area, you ought to stop by. Well, maybe not. Okay, so be that. I'm going to talk to you about resumes a little bit today. Okay, and I want to make some prefatory comments, then give you a handout, certainly answer questions as we go through this, and then answer questions at the end should you have more. But a couple of things just generally about resumes. Okay, if you are applying for any position that is worthwhile, okay, whether it's it's an actual position, internship, a scholarship, whatever. If it's worthwhile, there's going to be lots of others. And I've gone through a lot of these over the years in hiring people and seeing, and if it's worthwhile, there's going to be 50, 100 or more, 150 resumes. Okay, think always in communication. I tell my students, always try to put yourself in the place of the receiver. In this case, you put yourself in the place of the person that's doing the hiring. And what you want to do is try to position yourself and your resume, and maybe a cover letter, we'll talk about that, such that when that person goes through and looks at all these resumes, and typically puts them in 3 piles. One, no, not interested. Maybe interested in, oh yeah, I want to look at this one again. Because a person will look at your resume about 20 seconds. Okay? And if your resume goes on for a page or two, probably not going to look very much at all at that. Because people are too busy. And so what you want to do is several things. First of all, you want a resume that when someone picks it up, it looks good. Aesthetically, it's balanced, that sort of thing. You don't want little stars around the outside and, clever things. I tell my classes you don't want to put it on pink paper, unless maybe you're trying to get a job with Mary Kay Cosmetics or whatever, the pink folks there, So, but also, Anything I tell you, any real experts would tell you, the Career Center, others, all fine and dandy. But the resume is yours. So you can ignore everything, you can take everything that people say and try to incorporate it, but when you take that one page or even a little bit more and hand it to somebody, what you're essentially saying is, this is the best representation I can do for me, for this that I'm trying to get. Okay, and you're hoping that that will be enough. So keep that in mind. It's not, a couple of things. It's not, your resume is not a narrative. Okay? Now, Dr. Carnac has one, and people in academia have Vitas. Okay, Vitas. And Vitas are long. They list things, all the presentations and committees and on and on. Go on page after page. Resume is not that. A resume is trying to essentially, it's kind of like you had a neon sign that's blinking. Boom, boom, me, 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 me. And that's what you're trying to do. All right, I want to give you a handout that we're going to kind of use to go over. And so if you can, and one of you can just sort of pass them around or maybe help out a little bit or something. You can, yeah. As those are going around, I'll fall back to trivia things here. Let's see here. Easy ones first. Donald Duck's nephews? Donald Duck's nephews. Come on, don't you guys have a life? Okay, there you go. Thank you. You ever heard of those? Huey, Dewey, and Louie? Yeah. I can slow down if you want. Okay, it's a joke. How about Daisy Duck's nieces? Anybody know that? This is true. I wouldn't lie to you. They're April, May, and June. Okay. See, when you go, like in the weekend, you go downtown and wherever, and you order a soda, and you can throw these things out and get a free soda or something like that. How about what are the number of bones in a foot or hand? What do you guess? William, what do you guess? How many bones in my hand? 27 and 30. There's 27 here and 30. No. Any other guesses? That's true, yeah. 19. Okay. 2 or 3 more. Whose wife would eat no lean? Jack Sprat, thank you. Okay, good. You did have a childhood. What's another name for iron oxide? Rust. Okay. Francis Bellamy in 1892 wrote something that we say every day in America. What was it? Pledge of Allegiance. Yeah. I have a digression on that, but I'm not going to go there today, but I'll spare you for that. Okay, does everybody have one of those handouts? Do they have enough to go around up there? Okay, are there should be, yeah, there's some coming across. So, okay. Okay, we're going to use this to kind of go through, and again, feel free to ask questions and what as we go through. You can see at the very top, the first thing it says is that your resume will be scanned, 20 seconds or so. The ideal thing, we'll talk about cover letters in a minute, the whole process of this, okay, is if you, let's say you have 100 resumes, for a job. Typically, maybe about 10 will have a cover letter, and those will stand out. Okay, a cover letter introduces, and I have a sample I'll show you, we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but a cover letter introduces your resume. Okay, and if you write your cover letter, rather literally, literally, it's written well, all the kind of positive things, someone looks at that and says, oh, okay, that gives a good first impression, moves to the next step, which is the resume. Okay? And then the idea of the resume is to get the people to think, I want to talk to that person. Now, you'll have another, maybe 2 weeks from now, somebody's going to come in and talk about interviewing, but that's the third step. And that person, I'm sure, will talk to you about things that one needs to do to get ready for an interview, a myriad of kind of things and that. But again, the sequence of that is if you write a good cover letter, to introduce your resume, and then from your resume, get you into some kind of meeting. So, look at some of these things, and there are the bullets there. Resume should, for the most part, be 1 page in length. Well, if you have 2 pages, 1.5, something like that, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. Nuclear disaster still is a little worse. I mean, there's some things like that. And so, it's up to you, though, and you got to remember if it goes to the second page so that they may not read it. So try to do it as much as you can at 1 page. Okay? Obviously, it should be neat, easy to read, punctuation, grammar, and all that. Think about it. You're reading resumes, okay? You have 50 of them there. You look in, and one of them has a couple of grammatical mistakes, punctuation, misspelling. You're going to say, yeah, that's the person I want. No. So, and if you're not good at those things, you don't proofread well, get somebody else to read it. Okay? And I make this offer all the time, and I, even with a big group like this, if I can help you down the road, you know, if you do a resume, you need somebody to look at it, I'll look at it. I'll be glad to, you know. See what it looks like. So, and again, it's just, you know, it's one person's opinion. So, now, moving down, there are some other things. If you have experiences, and you should, and pull on some things, you list those, the most recent first, and then you go backwards. Okay. And you had, a lot of times people will say, well, I can't get a job because I don't have experience, you know, and, you know, it's one of those catch-22 kinds of things. But you can pull on things in your background, in your past, that you can bring out. Some things will be relevant, some things not. If you're a freshman in college here, you probably, if you do a resume, it's probably going to list a lot of things you did in high school. If you're a senior, you've probably moved on from those. And by the time you get your first job, let alone your second one, people may, you know, you won't even put where you went to high school on that. And the University of Georgia, you'd probably say, you know, college, University of Georgia, except like that. And people, though, once you get your first job, okay, then your future is based on how you do in that job and the resume that you would use there. And your resume, because you have it electronically, is an ongoing thing. You adapt it to whatever position. Each one's different. Okay, and so you keep that, and you go on from there. And it says there you do more than one version. Let's see, I have here. Oh, you can't see too well here, I know. Pretty much all white paper here, and then there's a beige colored one there, right? I don't know if you really can't see here, but if you were at a desk, you would see the difference. Okay, when you have your resume, you know, go to the Kinkos of the world, wherever, and spend a few bucks and get it done on good paper. Not white, but maybe gray, you know, the beige, something like that, a different color, because it will stand out. And what you're trying to do when there's a stack of resumes, 100 or more there, you know, and someone, you know, they see yours and it looks positive, it's on, you know, beige paper, a little bit different, it already stands out, they're going to remember that. So to do that, be willing to, you know, to put it on different and spend a little bit of money. I mentioned about high school information there. High school information, and you, depending on what you're trying to do. Let's say that in third grade you had a paper route, okay? Well, you say, it's a long time ago, doesn't have any bearing on what I'm trying to do. On the other hand, let's say you're trying to get some kind of job that maybe is related to sales, related to being entrepreneurial, and so you start by saying, you know, in third grade I had a paper route. Even then I was entrepreneurial. And what you do is you set up sort of if you will, a sequence of things you've done over your life that shows that. Or if you were trying to get a job in journalism, and you could say, even though it wasn't the journalistic part, even in third grade I was having a paper route. So what you do is you pull on those things that reflect you well for that what you're trying to get. And so you may pull some things in, you know, from high school or before that you don't really think would be relevant for certain things, but they could be relevant for others. So don't lie. Seems like obvious, right? The old line: if you don't lie, you don't have to, you know, worry about what you said. Who was George O'Leary? Who was George O'Leary? Yeah, Georgia Tech football coach, what, a dozen years ago, give or take. Beat Georgia a couple of years when Ray was coach and Jim Donnan was coach and all that sort of thing. George O'Leary from Boston, Catholic football coach. If you're from New England, you're a football coach, and you're Catholic, there are two schools you'd have an interest in: BC, Boston College, or mostly Notre Dame. He applies. He gets the job at Notre Dame. He is happy as can be. I mean, life is good. And he's a good coach. He's a good guy. Okay? About a month later, Notre Dame officials say, George, says you have a master's degree here, and we checked on that, and actually you don't. Oh, plot thickens. Okay? And he said what people typically say. Well, an assistant did that. I didn't really check it, all that. Notre Dame said, hey, we're not buying it. You're not our coach. And he was not. He was not. Don't lie. It'll catch up to you. You know that. You know. So be straightforward. Okay. We'll talk a little bit about how you can kind of say things in there that aren't lying, but rather position yourself well. Okay. But obviously you don't want to lie. You're essentially, and then look at the, turn that over, I guess. You're essentially trying to create a positive image for yourself. Okay. Now, personal information. Now, when you're a freshman, sophomore, maybe junior, something like that, you can have things like an email address that's, you know, kind of cute and funny. Even a phone message that when people call you, you know, it rings and the message is, you know, hey, dude, I'm not here right now. I'm out drinking. I may call you back, you know, and it's kind of your friends. That's kind of fun. you know, when IBM, when AGCO, and all these companies call your home later on and they get that, they're not real impressed by that, okay? So once you get to be at a point where, you know, you're starting to not look at college so much except in the rearview mirror, and you're starting to look out there to whatever we call it, the real world, make sure your image is such on your phone and on your email that's positive, okay? So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Objective statement. Objective statement. And some of you in the questions you asked, is it needed, that sort of thing. Here's the deal on an objective statement. If you have a cover letter, you don't need one, because your cover letter essentially is stating what your objective is with your resume. If, on the other hand, you just have a, you know, you don't have a cover letter and just a resume, you might have an objective statement. But if you do have an objective statement, make sure that it is objective and specific. If you